They forced me to scrub floors in front of 300 wedding guests, laughing as my husband's family called me trailer trash. His mother ripped my dress apart, saying I was unfit to wear their family colors. But they made one fatal mistake. They didn't know my father was the man who could buy their entire bloodline 10 times over. What he did next will restore your faith in justice. Stay with me until the end, because the moment my father walked through those doors, their world shattered in ways you won't believe. Trust me, you need to see how this unfolds. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment everything started unraveling. My name is Elena, and this is the story of how I discovered that sometimes the cruelest betrayal comes wrapped in wedding vows and family traditions. And sometimes, retribution arrives in the most spectacular way imaginable. I was 24 when I met Marcus Ashford at a charity fundraiser. I'd gone there reluctantly, dragged by my college roommate who thought I needed to get out more. I was working as a pediatric nurse, pulling double shifts, living in a modest apartment, and perfectly happy with my simple life. That night, I wore a dress I'd borrowed, and my shoes were from a clearance sale. I felt out of place among all the designer gowns and champagne fountains. Then Marcus approached me. He was handsome in that effortless way some men are, with kind eyes and a smile that made me forget I was tired from a 12-hour shift. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. He told me he worked in real estate, and I told him about the kids I cared for at the hospital. He never mentioned his family name, never dropped hints about wealth or status. We just connected. 3 months later, he proposed. It was simple, perfect, exactly what I wanted. A picnic in the park. A ring that wasn't ostentatious, just beautiful and meaningful. I said yes without hesitation because I loved him, truly and completely. I thought I'd found my person, my partner, someone who saw me for who I was. What Marcus didn't tell me, what I wouldn't discover until much later, was that the Ashford family wasn't just wealthy. They were American royalty. Old money, the kind that came with country clubs, boarding schools in Switzerland, and a family tree that stretched back to the Mayflower. They owned hotels, commercial real estate across 5 states, and had enough influence to make or break political careers. And Marcus hadn't told them about me yet. The first time I met his family was at a casual dinner at their estate. Casual, I'd learn, meant something very different to the Ashfords. I showed up in a nice sundress I'd bought for the occasion, only to discover that casual meant designer casual. Everyone else looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, effortlessly elegant in clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Marcus's mother, Victoria Ashford, looked me up and down like I was something unfortunate the cat had dragged in. She was tall, impeccably dressed, with ice blue eyes that could freeze you from across a room. She extended 2 fingers for me to shake, not a hand, and smiled with her mouth but not her eyes. "So you're the nurse," she said, making my profession sound like an apology. "How? Practical." Marcus's father, Richard, barely acknowledged my existence. He gave me a curt nod, then immediately engaged Marcus in conversation about business, effectively shutting me out. I stood there awkwardly, holding my wine glass, trying to look comfortable in a room that screamed I didn't belong. And then there was Isabel, Marcus's younger sister. She was beautiful, poised, and venomous in the way only someone who's never been denied anything can be. She looped her arm through mine with false friendliness, leading me around their estate, pointing out family heirlooms and mentioning their value. "This painting is a Monet, original of course. Mother bought it at Sotheby's for $8 million. This vase is Ming Dynasty. Father's grandfather acquired it in Shanghai. And this," she gestured to a sculpture, "was a gift from a Hollywood director whose career Richard launched." The message was clear. This is our world. Can you afford to be in it? But I loved Marcus. I convinced myself that his family would warm up to me eventually, that love would be enough. I was wrong. The attacks were subtle at first. Victoria would invite me to charity events, then introduce me as Marcus's friend from the hospital. Not his fiancé, not by name, just someone temporary and insignificant. She'd ask me to help serve at their parties, treating me like hired help while their actual staff looked on uncomfortably. Richard would talk about the importance of proper breeding and maintaining family standards right in front of me, as if I wasn't there. He'd discuss Marcus's future, talking about suitable business partners and connections he should maintain, never once including me in those future plans. Isabel was perhaps the worst because her cruelty came with a smile, She'd compliment my engagement ring, then mention how small it was compared to her friends' rings. She'd invite me shopping, then steer me toward clearance racks while she browsed couture. She'd post photos on social media of Marcus with other women old friends. She'd claim always tagging him, but never me, as if I didn't exist in his life. Marcus would tell me I was overreacting. That's just how they are, he'd say. They're traditional. They need time to adjust. He'd promised to talk to them, to set boundaries, but nothing ever changed. And I, desperate to make this work, swallowed every insult, absorbed every slight, and kept smiling. What none of them knew, what I never told Marcus, was where I really came from. My father, James Morrison, built a technology empire from nothing. He created software that revolutionized cybersecurity, and his company was now worth billions. Billions, with a B. He had government contracts, military partnerships, and enough wealth to make the Ashford fortune look like pocket change. Forbes listed him in the top 50 wealthiest people in America. I grew up in that world. Private schools, bodyguards, a childhood where I never flew commercial and never wanted for anything. But I also watched how it changed people. I saw friends who only loved my father's money, suitors who only wanted access to his empire. I watched my mother, who'd married him when he had nothing, struggle with the spotlight and eventually lose herself to it. When I turned 18, I made a choice. I took my mother's maiden name, Morrison, instead of Harrington, enrolled in nursing school under a scholarship I earned on my own merit, and moved across the country. I wanted to build a life that meant something, to find love that was real, not transactional. I wanted to know that if I fell in love, it would be with me, not with my father's bank account. My father supported my decision, even though it worried him. The world can be cruel to those it perceives as weak, he'd told me. Just remember, you're never truly alone. I'm always one phone call away. I'd kept that promise close to my heart for 6 years. Through nursing school, through my career, through meeting Marcus and falling in love, I was determined to make it on my own, to prove that I could build a meaningful life without leveraging my father's name or wealth. But I was about to learn that some situations require more than determination and love. The wedding was Victoria's vision, not mine. She'd taken over the planning immediately after Marcus and I got engaged, brushing aside my simple desires for something intimate. The Ashford name requires a certain standard, she'd informed me coldly. People expect elegance. We will not disappoint. What she meant was, we will not let you embarrass us. The venue was the Ashford estate. Naturally, they'd transformed the grounds into something, out of a fairy tale or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. White roses everywhere, thousands of them, imported from Ecuador, silk draping hung from ancient oak trees, a crystal-clear tent large enough to house 300 guests, with hand-blown glass chandeliers suspended from its ceiling. There were ice sculptures, a champagne tower that cost more than most people's cars, a 7-tier cake that required 4 pastry chefs working around the clock. The guest list read like a who's who of American high society. Senators, CEOs, celebrities, old money families who'd never associated with anyone beneath their station. My guest list was pathetically small by comparison. My father, who I'd asked to walk me down the aisle, a handful of nursing colleagues, my college roommate, people who actually knew me, who'd supported me, who cared about me beyond my last name or connections. Victoria had looked at my list with barely concealed disgust. Is this everyone? No extended family? No important connections? She'd sighed dramatically. Well, we'll seat them in the back. We don't want them too prominently displayed. The morning of the wedding, I should have known something was wrong. Victoria and Isabel had insisted on helping me get ready, sending away the hair and makeup artists I'd chosen. We know better, Victoria had said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Trust us. They dressed me in the gown Victoria had chosen, pure white silk, traditional, beautiful, and completely not my style. It was too formal, too structured, like wearing a costume. My hair was pulled back so tightly it gave me a headache, and my makeup was severe, almost theatrical. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. I looked like a doll, something pretty and empty, devoid of personality. Perfect, Victoria had said, adjusting my veil. You finally look like you belong to this family. I should have run then. But Marcus was waiting, and I loved him, and I convinced myself that after today, After we were married, things would get better. His family would have to accept me. I'd officially be one of them. I was so naive. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll give them that. As I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, I could see Marcus waiting for me, looking handsome in his tuxedo. For a moment, just a moment, I felt like maybe this was all worth it. Maybe love really could conquer everything. My father squeezed my hand before giving me away. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," he whispered. "But if you want to walk away right now, I'll support you. We can leave together." I should have listened to him. Instead, I smiled and said, "I love him, Dad. It's going to be fine." The look in my father's eyes told me he didn't believe that, but he nodded and placed my hand in Marcus's. Then he took his seat, watching carefully, his security detail positioned discreetly throughout the venue. I thought he was being overprotective. I had no idea he was being prepared. The ceremony went smoothly. We exchanged vows, exchanged rings, shared our first kiss as husband and wife. The guests applauded. And for those few moments, I felt like maybe I'd made the right choice. Maybe everything would be okay. Then came the reception. Victoria had organized everything with military precision. There was a specific order to events: cocktail hour, first dance, dinner service, speeches, cake cutting. She'd given me a schedule that morning, along with strict instructions about when to smile, when to move, when to speak. I was choreographed, controlled, a prop in the Ashford family show. During cocktail hour, Victoria approached me with Isabel and 3 of their closest friends, all women dripping in diamonds and judgment. They formed a semicircle around me, effectively trapping me against a decorative column. "We need to discuss something," Victoria said, her voice low but sharp. "Your behavior today." I blinked, confused. "My behavior? I don't understand. I followed every instruction you gave me." "Exactly," Isabel chimed in, her smile cruel. "You've been playing a part, haven't you? Pretending to be something you're not. Trying to fit into our world when you clearly don't belong." Victoria leaned closer, her perfume overwhelming. "We've been patient with you, Elena. We've tolerated this situation because Marcus insisted. But now that the wedding is over, now that you've gotten what you wanted, it's time for some honesty. What are you talking about?" My heart was starting to race, anxiety creeping up my spine. "You married my son for his money," Victoria stated flatly. "Everyone knows it. Everyone can see it. You're nothing but a social climber, a gold digger who saw an opportunity and took it." I felt like I'd been slapped. That's not true. I love Marcus. I would have married him if he had nothing. The women laughed. Actually laughed at me. "Please," one of Victoria's friends said dismissively. "You showed up at that charity event wearing borrowed clothes. You live in a tiny apartment and drive a car that's falling apart. You saw Marcus Ashford, saw our family's name and wealth, and you latched on like a leech." "That's not—" I started, but Victoria cut me off. "It is true. And we all know it. But here's what you're going to do now. You're going to be a good little wife. You're going to attend our events, smile for the cameras, and follow our rules. You're going to remember that you married up, way up, and you will show the appropriate gratitude." Isabel stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And if you step out of line, if you embarrass this family in any way, we will destroy you. We'll turn Marcus against you, freeze you out completely, and make sure everyone in our world knows exactly what you are." I should have said something. Should have defended myself. But I was in shock, my throat tight, my eyes burning with unshed tears. These women had just threatened me at my own wedding, and I stood there, frozen, unable to process what was happening. That's when Marcus's Uncle Charles approached, drunk and loud, interrupting our conversation. He was Richard's brother, a man who'd lived off the family money his entire life and never missed an opportunity to assert his superiority. "There's the new Mrs. Ashford," he bellowed, grabbing my shoulder roughly. "Time for you to earn your keep, girl. The waitstaff needs help. Why don't you make yourself useful?" "Excuse me?" I said, pulling away from his grip. "You heard me. You came from nothing, worked as a nurse, basically waitressing anyway, right? Go help serve drinks. Show everyone you're willing to work for your new position in this family." The women laughed again, that same, cruel, delighted laugh. Victoria didn't stop him. Nobody stopped him. "I'm the bride. I said, my voice shaking. It's my wedding. And you should be grateful we're even throwing you one. Charles shot back. Now stop being difficult and do what you're told. That's when Richard Ashford appeared. Marcus's father, with that cold expression he always wore around me. Charles is right. We need more staff circulating. Elena, make yourself useful. Consider it your first duty as an Ashford wife. I looked around desperately for Marcus, but he was across the tent, surrounded by his friends, laughing and drinking, oblivious to what was happening. I'm not a servant, I said quietly. I'm your son's wife. Barely, Richard said. You haven't proven yourself yet. Now either help, or we'll all know exactly how ungrateful you really are. I should have walked away, should have found Marcus, demanded he defend me, or just left entirely. But I was paralyzed by shock and humiliation, by the sudden realization that these people truly saw me as nothing. So I did what they asked. I took the tray a passing waiter offered, and I started serving drinks to wedding guests, many of whom looked at me with confusion and pity. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. Is that the bride? Why is she serving drinks? Oh my God, how humiliating. The Ashfords are putting her in her place already. Each whisper was a knife, each pitying look a wound. But I kept going, kept smiling through tears I refused to let fall, convinced that if I just endured this, if I just proved I could handle their tests, eventually they'd accept me. I was about to discover how wrong I was. An hour into serving drinks like a waitress at my own wedding, Victoria called for everyone's attention. The music stopped, conversations died, and 300 guests turned toward the main table where the Ashford family sat like royalty on display. Thank you all for joining us today, Victoria began, her voice carrying across the tent with practiced ease. Today we welcome a new member into our family, and we have a special tradition for Ashford brides. My stomach dropped. Nobody had mentioned any tradition to me. Victoria gestured for me to come forward. I set down the tray and walked toward her on shaking legs, very aware of every eye in the room on me. Marcus was at the table now, but his expression was unreadable. Elena, Victoria said my name like it tasted bitter. As is Ashford custom, new wives must prove their devotion to this family. They must show humility, gratitude, and a willingness to serve. What happened next will stay with me forever. Victoria produced a bucket and a scrub brush, placing them at my feet. You will clean the floor of this tent, here, in front of our guests. You will show everyone that you understand your place, that you're willing to work for the privilege of bearing the Ashford name. The tent erupted in shocked whispers. Someone gasped. I heard several people say, "No way, and this can't be real." I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to stand up, to stop this insanity. He shifted in his seat uncomfortably but said nothing. "Marcus," I said, my voice breaking, "please, tell them to stop this." He looked at his mother, then at his father, then back at me. "Elena, it's tradition. Maybe just do it quickly, and then we can move on." I couldn't breathe. My husband, the man who'd just vowed to honor and cherish me, was asking me to scrub floors in my wedding dress in front of 300 people. "I won't," I said, my voice stronger now, fueled by rage and betrayal. "This is degrading and cruel, and I won't do it." Victoria's expression hardened. "You will, or you'll reveal to everyone here exactly what we already know, that you're ungrateful, disrespectful, and unworthy of this family." "Then I'm unworthy," I said, meeting her cold gaze, "because I will not humiliate myself for your entertainment." That's when Isabel stood up, her face twisted with malice. "You came here for our money, you manipulative little leech. You trapped my brother with your innocent act, but we see right through you." She reached out and grabbed the shoulder of my dress, yanking hard. The fabric tore with a sickening sound. I stumbled backward, trying to cover myself, but she grabbed again, this time ripping the bodice. "Stop!" I screamed, but she didn't stop. Victoria joined her, pulling at my dress, at my carefully arranged hair, destroying hours of preparation in seconds. Other family members stood watching, some looking uncomfortable, others actually smiling at my humiliation. "This is what happens when you reach above your station," Victoria hissed as she tore my veil away. "This is what you deserve." My beautiful wedding dress was in tatters, my hair hung in my face. I was exposed, humiliated, broken in front of hundreds of people, and not one person stepped forward to stop it. Not one person except my father. The tent doors flew open with a bang that echoed across the grounds. Every head turned toward the sound, and there stood my father, James Morrison, flanked by 6 men in dark suits who radiated authority and barely contained violence. He walked toward me with the calm confidence of a man who'd built empires and crushed opponents. His security team moved in perfect formation around him. The entire atmosphere of the tent shifted in an instant from wedding celebration to something far more dangerous. Elena. My father's voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the tent. Are you all right? I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, tears finally falling freely as I tried to hold the remains of my dress together. My father removed his jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders, shielding me from the stairs. Then he turned to face the Ashford family, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Who did this to my daughter? He asked, still in that terrifyingly calm voice. Victoria stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly, clearly not understanding who she was dealing with. Your daughter needed to learn her place. She married into the Ashford family, and she needs to understand. My daughter, my father interrupted, is Elena Morrison Harrington. Does that name mean anything to you, Mrs. Ashford? The color drained from Victoria's face. Around the tent, I heard gasps, watched phones come out as people frantically searched the name. Richard stood up slowly. Harrington? You mean James Harrington? The James Harrington? That's right, my father confirmed. CEO of Harrington Technologies. Net worth approximately $8.7 billion, last time Forbes checked. Elena is my only child, my heir, and the woman you just publicly assaulted and humiliated at her own wedding. The silence was deafening. I watched as understanding dawned on faces throughout the tent. The whispers started immediately. Oh my God, Elena Harrington? The Harrington Technologies heiress? The Ashfords just attacked James Harrington's daughter? They're finished. Completely finished. Marcus had gone pale as death. He stumbled toward me, his hands reaching out. Elena, I didn't. No. You never told me. I wanted you to love me for me, I said, my voice hollow. Not for my father's money. But you couldn't even defend me from your own family. You just sat there and watched while they destroyed me. My father's security team had moved to block all the exits. Nobody was leaving until this was resolved. Here's what's going to happen, my father said, addressing the entire tent but looking directly at Richard Ashford. First, the marriage will be annulled. I have lawyers standing by, and based on what I've just witnessed, assault, coercion, and fraud, I don't think there will be any legal opposition. Mr. Harrington, please, Richard started, but my father held up a hand. Second, I'm going to destroy you. Not quickly, not mercifully, but systematically and completely. You see, Ashford Properties? You lease 60% of your commercial real estate from holding companies. Companies I happen to own through various subsidiaries. Your leases expire in 90 days, and they will not be renewed. Richard's face went from pale to gray. You can't. I can, and I will. Furthermore, your hotel chain? It runs on property management software. My software. I'll be terminating that contract immediately. The disruption to your operations alone will cost you millions. Your investors will panic, your stock will plummet, and when it does, I'll be there to buy up the pieces at pennies on the dollar. Victoria finally found her voice, though it shook. This is excessive. This is cruel. You're going to ruin us over a misunderstanding? My father's laugh was cold. A misunderstanding? You tore my daughter's clothes off in front of 300 people. You forced her to work like a servant at her own wedding. You conspired to humiliate her because you thought she was beneath you. There's no misunderstanding here, Mrs. Ashford. You chose cruelty. Now face the consequences. He turned to address the crowd, many of whom were recording everything on their phones. Let this be a lesson to everyone here. My daughter chose to live modestly, to build a life based on meaning rather than money. She worked as a nurse, helping children, making a real difference in the world. She could have leveraged my name, my wealth, my connections at any time. She chose not to because she has integrity, something this family clearly lacks. Marcus tried once more to approach me, but my father's security stepped between us. Elena, please. I love you. We can fix this. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw him clearly for the first time. You don't love me, Marcus. You love the idea of me. the grateful, compliant wife who would put up with anything to be part of your world. But that's not who I am. That's never who I was. I'll make it right, he pleaded. I'll stand up to my family. I'll protect you. Just give me another chance. You had your chance, I said, my voice steady now. You had dozens of chances over the past year. Every time your mother insulted me, every time your sister undermined me, every time your father looked through me like I was invisible, you never stood up for me. Not once. And tonight, when it mattered most, you told me to get on my hands and knees and scrub floors. You made your choice. My father's head of security approached him with a folder. Sir, the annulment papers are ready. I took the pen without hesitation and signed away my marriage of less than 6 hours. Marcus collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands, but I felt nothing but relief washing over me. My father addressed the crowd one final time. This wedding is over. No one speaks to my daughter or approaches her without her explicit consent. The Ashford family has 30 days to prepare for the consequences of their actions. I suggest they use that time to find good bankruptcy attorneys. As we turned to leave, I heard Isabel's voice, high and panicked. Father, do something. He can't just ruin us. Richard's response was defeated. He can, and he will. We attacked the wrong person's daughter. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. True to his word, my father systematically dismantled the Ashford empire. Their leases weren't renewed. Their software licenses were terminated. Their stock price crashed. Investors fled. Within 90 days, Ashford Properties filed for bankruptcy. The estate was sold at auction. Victoria's jewelry collection, all those pieces she'd flaunted so proudly, went to the highest bidders. Richard was forced to liquidate his art collection, including that $8 million Monet. Isabel's boutique closed, and she took a job working retail at a mall, a cruel irony not lost on anyone. Marcus lost everything too. The real estate business he'd run collapsed without the family support structure. He reached out to me dozens of times, emails and texts and voice messages, all begging for another chance, for forgiveness, for help. I never responded. As for me, I stepped fully into my role as Elena Harrington. I joined my father's company as Vice President of Social Impact, using my nursing background to develop healthcare technology initiatives. I started a foundation supporting nurses and healthcare workers, providing scholarships and mental health resources. I bought my own penthouse, not because I needed the space, but because I could. I traveled, reconnected with old friends, made new ones who knew exactly who I was from the start. I dated casually, learning what real respect looked like, what genuine partnership felt like. 1 year after the wedding, I was hosting a charity gala for my foundation when I saw Victoria Ashford across the room. She was working as part of the catering staff, serving drinks in a uniform that reminded me painfully of the role she'd forced me into at my own wedding. Our eyes met. She looked so different, older, tired, humbled by circumstances she'd never imagined could touch her. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. She approached me slowly, hesitantly, during a quiet moment. Elena, I wanted to. I need to apologize. For everything. What we did to you was unforgivable. I studied her for a long moment. A year ago, I would have felt satisfaction at seeing her like this. Now, I just felt tired of carrying anger. I accept your apology, I said finally. Not for you, but for myself. I'm done letting that night control my life. Thank you, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. I hope you've found happiness. I have, I told her honestly. Not in spite of what happened, but because of it. Your family showed me exactly who I didn't want to be, and that was a valuable lesson. She nodded, understanding the implicit message. The forgiveness didn't erase the consequences. As she walked away, I felt the last weight of that terrible night lift from my shoulders. The Ashfords had thought they were putting me in my place. Instead, they'd freed me from their judgment, from caring what anyone thought about my worth. I walked into that wedding as someone trying to earn acceptance from people who would never give it. I walked out knowing I never needed their approval in the first place. My father found me a few minutes later, looking proud. You okay, sweetheart? Yeah, Dad. I really am. Good. Because I have a surprise for you. Remember that hospital you did your residency at? The one that's been struggling with funding? I nodded, curious. I just bought it, and I'm putting you in charge of redesigning their entire patient care program. You'll have unlimited resources to make it the best pediatric hospital in the state. I hugged him tightly. This man who'd always known my worth, who'd taught me to never settle for less than I deserved. Thank you, Dad. For everything. Thank you, Elena. For being exactly who you are. For teaching me that real strength isn't about money or power. It's about integrity, resilience, and never letting anyone make you feel less than you are. That night, as I looked around at all the people my foundation was helping, at the real difference we were making in people's lives, I realized something profound. The Ashfords thought they were stripping me of my dignity when they tore my wedding dress. Instead, they stripped away the last illusion I had about them, about Marcus, about what I'd been willing to accept in the name of love. They thought they were teaching me my place. Instead, they taught me my value. Sometimes the worst betrayal becomes the greatest blessing. Sometimes being broken down completely is what allows you to rebuild yourself stronger, clearer, more authentic than ever before. I am Elena Morrison Harrington. I am my father's daughter. I am a nurse, a businesswoman, a philanthropist, a woman who knows her worth and never again will let anyone convince her otherwise. Marcus and his family thought I needed their name to be somebody. They were wrong. I was always somebody. I just needed to remember it. And now, standing in a ballroom full of people making real differences in real lives, I've never been more certain of who I am and what I'm worth. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories of strength and justice. Share this with someone who needs to remember their own worth today. Comment below and tell me, have you ever been underestimated by someone who lived to regret it? I read every single comment and I want to hear your story. Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to know your value. You don't need anyone's approval to take up space. You are enough, exactly as you are, right now. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Until next time, this is Elena reminding you. Sometimes the people who try to make you feel small are just revealing their own insecurities. Rise above them. You were born worthy, and nothing anyone does can take that away. Stay strong, stay true, and remember the best. Revenge is living well, on your own terms, without needing their validation. You've got this.